Hi there. My brother and I, and along with a close friend of ours, we've spent the past 7 years learning game development, and during that time we were able to make a video game called The Pedestrian. At first, when we initially launched the game, it was very underwhelming. We were actually pretty bummed to see it didn't look like the game was going to be financially successful. But after a little bit of time, the numbers started climbing, and for our needs, it was a successful game.
The Pedestrian was a very ambitious game for our first ever game. It was a little tricky because we were learning game development while we were making a game. But thankfully, we were able to successfully make a game and release it. And now that we're going into our next project, we're hoping that we can use that experience and make this next game more efficiently with more confidence. The Pedestrian was essentially made by accident. We were learning game development as we were creating the game, so the game ended up just kind of being this amalgamation of everything that we've learned. And now for this next project, we've kind of stepped back, clean slate, and we're thinking from the beginning, what do we want in a game? What do we like?
So we tried a bunch of different prototypes, spanning from a survival shooter all the way to an exploration game set in old London, but we finally settled on something much more interesting.
Okay.
We really like movies and stories in general for that matter, but there seems to be an issue in stories in video games because they have conflicting rules. Movies are passive observation while video games are an interactive medium.
So we were thinking, is there a way that we can keep players from ruining the story? So, a main character's having some pivotal dialogue sequence and then the character's running around and like looking into his face and doing stupid stuff. Can we avoid that, but also avoid a cutscene where you just kind of have to sit back on your couch, set down your controller, and you're just watching?
Let's go take a shower. All right, skip that. All right, skip. Skip this cutscene. Still in the shower. Skip that one. And boom, go out of the shower.
We could go with a choose your own adventure type story. There's a lot of those games out there and they're perfectly fine, but we feel that it's very awkward a lot of times when you open the story up for the player to decide how it goes. It's not always ideal.
So that's really the point with movies, is that they are the best of that kind of medium of storytelling because everything is chosen by the writer, the director, to be kind of this optimal situation for telling the story.
But what kind of a game would that be? It's just a big cutscene. That seems pretty boring.
If stories in movies are kind of locked down and you're just a passive observer, how can we take that and turn it into the player being an active observer?
Okay, so imagine the story is spread out across a large area, being told by many different characters, and you have to explore and investigate the mystery of the story.
So if we did this kind of in the traditional way that video games do, we would have characters scattered throughout the map, and there'd be like a little exclamation mark above their head or something. You'd walk up to them and then there'd be some type of predetermined dialogue sequence where you can kind of glean information about the story.
But that goes against our rule of not allowing the player to interact with the story. It seems more interesting if we keep the player completely hands off from the story progression and they can only watch it. Imagine the control center in the Truman Show. You're the guy swapping the cameras around, watching Truman live out his day.
But really that might get kind of boring if you're just in this control center. You're not moving and you're just swapping cameras around. So what if we were to allow the character or the player to walk around the world and place the cameras himself and then go back to kind of a central control center. But then how can we stop the player from bumping into the characters and messing up the story, essentially?
We came up with this idea that you have these cameras that can view the past. All you have to do is walk around the environment, find a place, set your camera down, go back to the control center, and scrub through the timeline of where the camera's looking into the past. So bingo, now we have a story that's safe from interference, and we have a story that can be interacted with in an engaging way. So that was a lot of explaining, but now that you get the idea of what the game is, we can show you the story now. So we wanted a story that felt like a globe-trotting adventure, but that would be really complicated for us to make a game that's going across the whole world, and we thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we could take all of those exotic locations and put them all in one place, which would work perfectly in a movie studio backlot. So the story is set in the golden age of Hollywood. We wanted to take all of our favorite elements of old movies and blend it all together in a mystery. The reason why we really need it to be a mystery is because it's a very motivating thing for a player to have curiosity and want to investigate and essentially be Sherlock Holmes. There was a game back in the 90s called The Last Express.
Don't believe everything you read in the papers.
And this is the best example we could find that lines up with our vision for the game. And the idea is the story plays out whether you're watching it or not. You have all of these different characters with schedules and timelines, and they're all just doing their own thing. You can watch it happen, or you can go somewhere else and watch something else happen. It's all just a living, breathing world. And the goal with our game would be, you need to find the most interesting people and investigate the most important clues that will help you get further to unsolving the mystery.
So one of the side benefits of this kind of storytelling is that you can follow whoever you want when you want. So an example of that I'm thinking of in TV shows is that you can be watching a really cool character and then all of a sudden there's like 2 episodes following a rather lame character and you just want to get back to the cool storyline. So the cool thing about this is you could just literally like skip sections of the boring character, get just the details that you need, and then get back to the main character and follow the storyline that you're interested in.
So because we are making a story that's going to really rely on believable characters, we obviously need good actors. But first we need a way to capture those actors and their performance. I guess that's why it's called performance capture.
So to capture all this animation, we're gonna need a motion capture studio, we're gonna need facial capture, and it's gonna be a little complicated, but hopefully we're doing some planning right now and we're looking into some space where we can set up these things. We'll get you more details on that later.
So I've been working on the script for this story for a while now, and it's actually gotten pretty beefy, but it's not as simple as a traditional film script where it's just a linear story. What we've been calling it is, it's not a long story, it's just a really thick story. And so that means we have, let's say an hour of actual story timeline, but then we have 5, 10, 15 layers of that story being told from the perspective of different characters, weaving in and out of each other and helping to aid in the ultimate plot of the story. So writing the script is very complicated when you have to think about 15 different characters that all could be main characters if you're watching them.
And so one of the ways that we are tackling this is to build a tool that translates Daniel's script, and this is merely for prototyping. It translates Daniel's script, puts it into this timeline where you can see every single character in time, what they're doing. It automatically generates placeholder audio clips for all of the dialogue sequences. And it also hooks up kind of temporary waypoint animation. So then we can see from a bird's eye perspective, we can see all of the characters running around the map. They're all going to the locations that are determined by Daniel's script. They're all having their little conversations that play out. And then we'll use this to then build on top of, we'll replace the audio clips with the actual performed animations. We'll add in all of the motion captured animation for replacing the waypoint animation. And then over time, this will become this big monolithic, essentially just this huge world animation that's all playing out all at the same time.
Right. It's like you have a big ant farm and there's just all this stuff just moving everywhere.
So since this is such an ambitious project and there's only 2 of us, one of the tools we're going to be using is called Houdini. And we're hoping that we can use that to essentially multiply our efforts and be more efficient with our time.
Yeah. Houdini is one example of how we are trying to optimize the production of this game as much as possible.
Something we did on the last video, which we were really happy with, is we documented quite a bit of it. It's just cool being able to look back and see our progress and see where we were at those years ago. So we want to do the same thing with this project. So we will be uploading, at the very least once a month, we're going to be uploading our progress of the game and try to give everyone insight into how things are going.
We want to be as candid as possible so that we can really have you guys along on the journey of the struggles, the wins and losses of developing a game from scratch.
So that's it. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.